I never imagined a chance encounter with a black homeless boy could heal my grieving heart. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. It was a Tuesday, just another bleak day in a city that felt colder with every breath I took. I stumbled through the crowded streets, tears blurring my vision. The noise of passing cars, laughter, and mingled conversations faded into the background, just muffled echoes in my mind. I felt lost, like a shipwrecked sailor, searching for a light in a stormy sea of despair. Jenna, my sister, had left this world too soon. Her laughter still danced in my ears, but it was just a cruel whisper now. Family, friends, they tried to help, but they didn't understand the suffocating weight on my chest. I had to push them away. I made my way to the park, that quiet refuge where I could sort through my grief in silence. The chill in the air stung my skin, but I didn't care. I was numb inside, a hollow shell wrapped in a heavy coat of pain. And then I saw him. A boy, no more than 10, with wide eyes that sparkled like the stars against the night sky. His skin was a rich, deep brown. He sat on the cold concrete, legs curled, holding a cardboard sign that read "Lost, but not alone." His hair was tangled, and his clothes hung off him like they were borrowed from someone else. Yet, what struck me was his smile. It was brilliant, warm, and radiated through the darkness that enveloped me. I stopped, my heart racing. How could a boy in such a tragic situation find light? I felt drawn to him. He looked up, and our eyes locked. There was a flicker of understanding, a connection that pierced through my gloom. I watched as he reached for a worn-out teddy bear with a missing eye, cradling it gently. I was captivated. I knelt down, my knees hitting the hard ground with a thud. "What's your name?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "Dante," he replied, his voice soft yet steady. The silence between us hung heavy, but it was different. It wasn't the silence of loneliness. It was filled with unspoken stories and shared burdens. Dante chuckled suddenly, as if he could sense the shift in my spirit. "You look sad. I can make you smile." He lifted his teddy high, showcasing its worn body like it was the finest treasure. My chest tightened. I could feel lightness beginning to break through. Just then, a heavy storm cloud rolled above us, overshadowing the sun. I stared up, heart pounding, as thunder rumbled in the distance. Rain began to fall, heavy drops splashing against concrete, seeping into my shirt. I shivered, caught off guard. But Dante laughed, dancing as the rain mixed with the tears that still stained my cheeks. In that moment, I realized this boy, with his tattered clothes and innocent bliss, was somehow the answer to a question I hadn't even asked yet. I was desperate to know more but afraid of what his story might hold. I felt something inside me want to bloom, a flicker of hope amid the storm. What would happen next? What darkness had he faced? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The rain fell relentlessly, each droplet drenching me in a chill that contrasted sharply against the warmth radiating from Dante's smile. I watched him spin and twirl, embraced fully by the downpour as if it were a long-lost friend rather than a gray, wet inconvenience. It was surreal. The joy in his movements reminded me of Jenna, back when life felt uncomplicated and the worst decision was which flavor of ice cream to choose. After a moment, I felt an almost magnetic pull to join him. So, standing in the pouring rain with a homeless boy, I dropped my facade. I began to spin too, laughing for the first time in what felt like an eternity. My laughter, a sound that felt foreign against the backdrop of my sorrow, mingled with the patter of the rain, creating a symphony of innocence and healing. For that brief moment, the world slipped away, and all that existed was Dante and me, two lost souls temporarily bound by joy. But as the storm began to relent, a wave of dread crashed over me. Joy was fleeting. That fact had been reinforced over and over in my life. I glanced down at this bright light in the darkness, and, amid the laughter, the question weighed heavily in my heart. What was a boy like Dante doing alone in a storm? "Can I ask you something?" I said, breathless from the dancing and the drizzle. "Of course," he replied, his eyes brighter than the rising sun that was attempting to break through the clouds. "Where's your family?" I braced myself, unsure of whether I was ready for the answer. His smile faltered, the light dimmed ever so slightly, and he turned his gaze to the ground as the droplets began to slow. They aren't with me anymore," he muttered, the cheer draining from his tone. It was as if the rain had betrayed him, pulling hope along with it. That I knelt beside him, the weight of my own grief echoing in my chest as I felt the sadness permeating the space between us. "I'm so sorry, Dante." He looked at me, his eyes narrowed in thought. "But that's okay. I have my bear." There was an innocence in his words that hit me hard, a reminder that, despite the loss, he found ways to carry on, even if it meant holding on to a piece of his childhood. "His name is Mr. Cuddles. He listens to everything," he said, lifting the damaged teddy bear into my line of sight. The name brought a small smile back to my face. "Mr. Cuddles, huh? He must be very wise." We sat there for a few moments, enveloped in a silence that now felt comfortable, allowing that fleeting joy to mingle with the sorrow. Suddenly, a figure appeared at the edge of the park, a tall man wearing a long coat, his silhouette harsh against the fading storm. My heart dropped. He approached with purpose, his brow furrowed, his eyes scanning the vicinity. I could feel the tension creeping back in, as heavy as the clouds that clung to the skies. Dante's complexion paled at the sight. He shrunk back against the concrete, clutching Mr. Cuddles tightly as though the bear could shield him from whatever threat loomed ahead. "Dante," the man called, his voice rough and demanding. A shiver coursed through me. I stood slowly, my instincts screaming at me to protect him. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I am his guardian." The man's eyes flickered to me, a complex blend of anger and menace smoldering beneath the surface. "He shouldn't be here. It's not safe." Dante shook his head, his small body trembling against the intrusion. "I was just playing." "Playing? You think this is a game, boy?" The man stepped closer, and I instinctively moved in front of Dante. "Back off," I shouted without thinking, my heart racing. I had only just met this child, yet an overwhelming sense of protectiveness surged through me. "He's just a kid." The man's expression shifted, surprise etched across his features momentarily, before settling back into a scowl. "You don't know anything. He belongs with me." My resolve hardened, but inside, I felt a storm brewing that was far worse than the one that had just passed. "No, he doesn't. He deserves a chance to be happy, and you're not giving it to him. Where's his happiness going to get him?" The man snapped back, frustration erupting in his tone. "You think you can save him?" It felt personal. A direct challenge to my heart, a dagger that sent shockwaves of doubt and fear reverberating through me. He was right. I didn't know how to save anyone, least of all a boy like Dante. Yet the connection we shared wouldn't allow me to back down, and I felt the weight of my own grief colliding with the crushing reality of the world around us. Dante's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. "Please don't fight, I want to go with you." My heart shattered. His words hung in the air, a painful reminder of a simplicity I couldn't protect. "Just take one step back, and we can talk about this," the man hissed. But I was already bracing for battle between protecting a boy who had just begun to teach me the meaning of joy and the harsh realities of a life I feared we both would be trapped in forever. Then, in that moment of dread and confusion, my phone buzzed in my pocket, a harsh reminder of the world outside this maelstrom. I pulled it out, glancing at the screen, unsure of whether to hope for something, anything, that could turn the tide. But it wasn't a message. It was a number I didn't recognize, a desperate call for help from a past I could barely face. And as I stared at the screen, realizing the potential implications of picking up that call, my breath hitched. The storm outside had faded, but inside me, a tempest had only just begun. The air crackled with tension as I stood there, the man's shadow looming over us, inching closer while I struggled in front of Dante to shield him from whatever storm was brewing. My world was narrowing, the cacophony of my thoughts drowned out by the pulse of my heart. I dropped my phone, its thud lost in the intensity of the moment as it slipped from my grasp. "Dante, get behind me," I said, forcing my voice to be calm despite the turmoil inside. I was scared not just for the boy, but for the fragile thread that bound us in this surreal dance with fate. "Why do you care?" The man shot back, his face hardening into a mask I could almost feel pressing against my own. He doesn't need you. He's mine. Mine, I thought bitterly, recognizing the word's cruel weight. I wished I'd known more before stepping into the role of his protector, but every moment with him illuminated the darkness that had clouded my own heart for far too long. Because he deserves to be happy, I exclaimed, desperation threading through each word. You're not offering him that. Dante's small frame quaked slightly, and Mr. Cuddles slipped from his grasp, landing with a soft thud on the wet ground. No, he said, eyes wide with fear. I've bent to retrieve the bear, trying to shield him from the chaos that churned around us. Everyone deserves happiness, Dante, I said, my voice softening. I handed him Mr. Cuddles, relishing the momentary glimmer of security that seemed to return to his eyes. Let him choose, I pleaded, turning back to the man. If he wants to come with you, that should be his decision. The man's expression flickered, perhaps a hint of uncertainty seeping through his aggressive facade. You think he'll choose you over family? Dante looked up at me, vulnerable and searching. But I don't remember my family. His voice trembled, raindrops still hanging in his lashes like tiny diamonds, so beautiful and yet filled with sorrow. That was a wound I recognized too well. It grasped at the corners of my own grief, the aching void left behind by Jenna's absence. It's okay, I whispered, crouching down again to meet his gaze. You've shown me joy, Dante. I want to share more moments with you. The man shifted, his resolve beginning to waver. The storm was retreating, but the shadows within me were still reeling from the memories it brought forth, the sobering recollection of a life once blissful, now robbed of light. Enough games, the man barked, taking a step forward, but I pressed my ground. Then my phone buzzed again on the ground, snapping me back from the brink of confrontation. Leave it, the man shouted, dismissively waving a hand, but I could hardly hear him over the rattle of anxiety churning within me. The name on the screen, silhouetted by the soft gray light of the overcast sky, gripped my heart tight. Before I could question myself, I snatched it up and answered, hello? A rush of static and distant voices flooded my ear before a familiar, haunting sound broke through. Help. It was not just any voice, it was Jenna's. Choked and desperate, painted in terror. Please, I need you. I jerked back from the overwhelming wave of panic that crashed around me. Jenna? But how? My mind instantly spiraled into a frantic haze, the memories of her laughter, the way her eyes sparkled when we talked about dreams, the open wounds of loss that had accompanied me for months. She was gone, so I had thought. Here, she gasped, and her voice crumbled into silence. The line went dead. Who was that? The tall man asked, frustration creeping into his voice again. I blinked, processing the distance between the image of Jenna I knew and the echo of her voice, now ringing solid in the air, a terrifying reminder that unresolved grief can resurface in the most strange and unwelcoming of moments. Dante's eyes fixed onto mine, pools of concern as he searched my expression. What happened? I don't know, I stammered, my heart racing, fear pulling me towards the ominous void of the past. The man watched me, the momentary softness morphing back to a hardened glare, sensing my hesitance. You should. Come with me, Dante, he urged, as if sensing his own rickety grasp slipping. She's not your family. I am. No, I cut in, my own determination reigniting. Dante deserves to make his own choice. Suddenly, the world tilted beneath us. The strains of the moment, the raindrops beginning to fall heavier once again. The weight of Jenna's haunting voice twisting through my heart, it all pressed down with an unbearable intensity. And in the eye of this personal storm, I realized that my very definition of happiness was unraveling before me, that I glanced back to where Dante clutched Mr. Cuddles tightly. The warmth of his innocence almost incandescent against the chill around us. I stood there, caught between the ghosts of my past and a future shattered by the unexpected fires igniting around me. Let's go find her, I urged softly, to both the boy and myself, rallying for a moment of bravery. Together, the man's eyes darkened, desperation clawing through the facade. You're making a mistake. But in that chaos, something shifted. A certainty, born from the vibrant bond between a broken woman and a lost boy. The threads of our fates woven tightly together in a fabric of persistence, holding against the storm, against the very definition of love and family twisted within pain. "Let's go, Dante," I whispered as he nodded slowly, our hearts united in a kindred spirit, ready to face whatever lay ahead. But just as we prepared to step away from the shadows of the man, a police car pulled into the park's entrance, lights flashing angrily against the drizzling sky, a revelation that this moment would spiral further beyond our control. And in that instant, I knew true chaos was just beginning. The police car's red and blue lights flickered like an emergency heartbeat, punctuating the heavy air around us. I felt the rush of adrenaline surge through my veins, propelling me away from the tangled mess of emotions swirling in my chest. This wasn't just about the man anymore. It was about Jenna, about the echoes of my past that refused to fade. "Dante, we have to move," I urged, grabbing his hand. He nodded, still clutching Mr. Cuddles, his small fingers intertwining with my own, grounding me amidst the chaos. The man's expression contorted with rage and helplessness as he watched us turn. "You think you can escape? You have no idea what you're doing." His voice rippled through the air, heavy with desperation. I threw a glance over my shoulder as we headed toward the park's exit, my pulse hammering loudly in my ears. Just steps away, two officers emerged from the patrol car, uniforms stark against the darkening sky, their expressions serious but not unkind. "Hey, you!" one officer shouted, directing his attention to the man. Panic coursed through me as I realized he might try to make one last play for Dante. But before I could process the thought, my focus was diverted back to the boy by my side. "Are they going to take me away?" Dante asked, his voice tiny, laced with fear. His wide eyes, filled with uncertainty and vulnerability, stole the breath from my lungs. "No," I said firmly, though I could feel the tremor in my own heart. "You're safe with me." I squeezed his hand gently, determined to shield him from the world that felt like a crumbling wreck. With each stride, the weight of Jenna's voice clung to me, a haunting reminder of what had been lost, of the light she took with her. The idea that she could be out there waiting for me, somehow needing my help, injected a new urgency into my strides. I glanced back at the scene unfolding, a swirl of police activity, the man's wild gestures as he struggled against the officer's authoritative grip. "Run," he shouted, but it wasn't a command. It was a plea, slipping desperately through a mouth that had once boasted of ownership and power. "Come on," I whispered to Dante. We moved quickly, weaving between the swings and the slides, memories of laughter echoing around us in this eerily quiet moment. "Where are we going?" Dante asked, his voice barely above a whisper as he looked up at me. The rain soaking our clothes and transforming the world around us into something dreamlike and surreal. "To find her," I replied, though every step felt heavier than the last. "And find a way to keep you safe." As we reached the entrance of the park, I turned toward the street. The familiarity of concrete and pavement started to feel like a lifeline. "Can we keep looking for my family?" Dante asked suddenly, his innocent hope contrasting sharply with the storm in my chest. "Of course. I promise we will," I replied, desperate to fulfill the vow woven into my heart. But beneath my words lay the harsh truth that I had no idea how to decipher this new message from Jenna, or how to reconcile it with Dante's fate. The rain began to pour, but we pushed forward, soaked to the bone but fueled by an unspoken determination. The streets drew me closer to a world I wanted to escape but couldn't ignore. A series of intersecting lives and broken promises tangled within the web of my memories pushed us forward, each step a reflection of resilience stitched together from silent desires. As we rounded a corner, a flicker of warmth caught my eye. An elderly woman stood by a cafe's window, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the lights inside. She held a steaming cup of something rich and dark in her hands, a small gesture of comfort in a world that felt so tumultuous. I caught her gaze, instinctively knowing her kindness would cut through the heaviness. "Want to grab some coffee?" I asked Dante as we approached the cafe. The warmth from inside wrapped around us, inviting yet daunting, urging us to find moments of peace amid the chaos. Dante's eyes lit up as he nodded, and my heart swelled with a flicker of joy that felt both foreign and necessary. The little things still mattered. They could still heal. As we stepped inside, the comforting aroma of roasted coffee beans wafted around us, blending with the sound of laughter from the handful of patrons scattered throughout. 2 hot chocolates, please, I requested at the counter, my heart fluttering at the simple request. Coming right up. The barista replied brightly, offering a smile that momentarily lifted the shadows from my mind. With our drinks in hand, I led Dante to an empty table, the pair of us snuggling closely together for warmth. I could see him relax, his shoulders dropping as he wrapped both hands around the mug, inhaling the comforting scent. I took a deep sip, feeling the warmth spread through me as I fought against the memories of Jenna's voice still haunting the edges of my consciousness. What do you think she needs from us? I asked, trying to foster a distraction from the turmoil that swirled just below the surface. I think she's scared, Dante replied, his innocence fresh and poignant, reminding me of hope painted in soft colors against a gray backdrop. Like me, his voice wove through my heart, solidifying the bond we were forging. You're not scared anymore, I assured him, not fully believing my own words, but wanting desperately to instill strength within him. We're brave together. But just as my words began to settle a sense of warmth between us, a sudden flash of movement at the cafe entrance sent a jolt through me. My breath caught as I recognized the shadow that lingered just outside a figure cloaked in the pouring rain, staring intently through the glass, lit by the incandescent glow of the cafe lights. It was the man. A shiver of dread crept up my spine as I held Dante closer, not knowing if he had followed us, or if it was simply an ominous coincidence. Why is he looking at us? Dante asked, his voice trembling that I kept my gaze fixed on the man's face reflected in the glass. Stay close, I warned softly, adrenaline surging through me again. As I readied myself to confront whatever came next, the man turned abruptly, disappearing into the obscured shadows of the rainy street. I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. But in that fleeting moment a spark of fear intertwined with nebulous hope something dark shifted in my chest. In that cafe filled with ephemeral warmth, I realized this encounter held greater depths than I could comprehend. A chance meeting with the ghosts of my past had forged a new path alongside the fragile trust one had begun to build with Dante. There was no escaping the truth. My heart, though shattered, pulsed with life anew. Yet the specter of uncertainty loomed closer, whispering promises of stormy nights ahead. And as I watched the rain fall in sheets outside, I couldn't shake the feeling that we had unwittingly attracted something sinister, something I didn't fully understand yet. But we were together, two wounded souls navigating a world soaked in uncertainty, gathered beneath the fragile umbrella of a newfound familiar journey that was only just beginning. The cafe's warmth enveloped us like a soft blanket, yet my heart remained chilled, tethered to the looming shadows just outside the door. I kept stealing glances toward the rain-soaked streets, half expecting the man to reappear, but the glass remained clear, showing only the hustle and bustle of pedestrians oblivious to the storm brewing in our lives. Oh, you think we should go? Dante asked, his voice a whisper almost drowned out by the clatter of cups and laughter nearby. I could see the worry etched across his delicate features, a mirror of my own turmoil. Not yet, I replied, though my own resolve felt tenuous, fraying at the edges. I wanted to protect him, to ensure we weren't walking straight into danger, but I could also see how it was all weighing down on him. With each moment spent in that cozy cafe, I became more acutely aware of the differences in our lives, but also of the profound similarities, the fears, the desires, and the longing for safety and connection. That I am really glad we came here, he said, his fingers wrapped tightly around the steaming mug, his cherubic face glowing with the faint light from the overhead fixtures. It was moments like these I wished I could preserve, time suspended and tranquil, but I knew better. Calm never lasted long in the world we were living. I am glad too, I murmured, but my thoughts were tangled, chasing ghosts. Warmth radiated from our drinks, but the rest of my heart felt cold, shadowed by Jenna's absence and the threat I believed lingered just outside. Suddenly, the door swung open, and the sound of rain poured into the cafe, pulling my attention like a magnet. My heart dropped to my stomach as I saw a different figure, one cloaked in a simple navy coat, wet hair clinging to her forehead. It was a woman with deep-set eyes that reflected both exhaustion and hope. She was a stranger but also oddly familiar, stirring something within me that I couldn't articulate. As she stepped inside, the world around us seemed unnatural. as if the cafe held its breath. The barista welcomed her with a charming smile, but the woman simply nodded, her gaze flitting about as if searching for something. "Can I help you?" the barista asked kindly, but the woman's eyes sparked with focus, landing on me, and then, to my surprise, on Dante Dies yours? She asked gently, her voice a soft melody contrasting with the clamor of the cafe. My heart raced, fear twisting in my gut. Visions of darker paths played in my mind, trembling threads of unease weaving into the atmosphere. "No," I managed to say, my voice thick. "But in protecting him." "Protecting him from what?" she pressed, her gaze sharp and unwavering. I felt my defenses rise, instinctively wanting to shield my newfound bond with Dante from everything, including this woman's curiosity. From I paused, realizing the weight of my unspoken fears. From a man. "He's dangerous." The woman's expression softened, and she moved closer as if she could sense the fragile foundation we stood on. "You don't have to be alone in this," she insisted, her voice wrapping around me like a warm embrace. "There's a community out there and network of people who can help. We don't need help," I replied, the edge in my voice sharper than I intended, but panic surged through me. I couldn't fathom what kind of help she might mean. Would she involve authorities? What if she wanted to take Dante from me? Protectiveness flared in my chest, overshadowing the exhaustion I felt. Just then, Dante grabbed my hand, his fingers squeezing tightly, a silent plea for understanding. "Maybe we should hear her out," he said, looking at the woman with those innocent, trusting eyes. "Maybe she knows something we don't." My heart twisted painfully at the thought of dragging Dante deeper into this unknown, but I felt the stirring, a deep-rooted fear that craved the words of a safe harbor amidst the raging storm. "Tell me," I urged her slowly, my voice quaking. "What do you know?" "More than you realize," she replied, her expression a mixture of compassion and determination. "I've seen people fall, and I've seen them rise. There's a Placia refuge where both of you could heal. You can't do this alone." In that moment, her words stirred something in me, a mixture of longing and doubt, just the slightest flicker of hope igniting within the ashes of despair. But the shadows outside hung heavy, and I couldn't help but think of the man still lurking in the back of my mind. "What's the catch?" I asked, skepticism dripping from my words. I wanted to believe in her, in the possibility of safety and a chance at a new beginning, but the fear of betrayal gnawed at me. "There is no catch," she insisted earnestly, extending her hand slightly toward me. "Just a chance, a safe space. But you have to decide to step through the door." Before I could respond, she turned, drawing my gaze outside. The rain was blurring the world beyond, an indistinct canvas painted in shades of gray. But then I saw him, the man again, emerging from the obscured depths while shooting us an incomplete view of panic-laden rage. "Dante, stay down," I barked, pulling him away from the window, my body acting before my mind could catch up. The fear that had coiled tightly within me burst to life, pushing aside any remnants of calm. "Don't move." I heard the woman's voice cut through the chaos as she stepped in front of me protectively. "If you don't provoke him, he might leave." Every instinct within me flared with urgency, every muscle poised for action as the figure began to storm toward the cafe, his eyes ablaze with desperation. "Run!" I yelled, but other patrons were already reacting, their laughter dying in the face of danger, mouths agape in disbelief. And at that moment, Nadia, this stranger yet beacon of hope, turned to me, her eyes glistening with fierce determination. "Do you trust me?" she asked urgently. Trust, what a fragile thing, built on the precipice of instinct and hope. Then, just as the world felt like it was collapsing around us, Dante's small hand found mine again, squeezing tight, giving me strength. Together, he whispered, eyes firm, sending a cascade of warmth through my veins, urging me to respond more than just with instinct, urging me to step forward into the unknown at last. But as the man slammed against the cafe's door with a force that rattled the glass, I stood frozen, a crossroads of fear and hope converging, with uncertainty looming like thunderous clouds just overhead, waiting for my next decision. The cacophony of startled voices and rattling dishes played out like a dreadful symphony as the man's fists pounded against the glass door, the sound echoing hollowly within the cafe's cozy interior. My palms were clammy against Dante's small hand, the warmth of his grip grounding me in a whirlpool of panic. I could see his wide eyes reflecting fear and confusion, mirroring my own spiraling thoughts. Please, just listen. Nadia's voice cut through the tumult, laden with urgency. She stepped closer, positioning herself between us and the unyielding figure outside. The way she stood so steadfast and brave evoked a sense of solidarity I hadn't known I needed. "Why is he after you?" she demanded, her eyes steely as they met mine, somehow coaxing the truth from my paralyzed lips. "He wants what I took from him, what he thinks is his," I stammered, my breath hitching at the memory of Jenna's frantic voice echoing in my mind. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I just wanted to protect her. Nadia's patience didn't wane. Instead, she seemed to lean into the weight of my words, crafting a bridge built on brittle trust. "Let me help you. But you need to promise me," she insisted fervently. "You have to be ready to leave everything behind. Tonight." The wind howled outside, pushing the rain against the window like a desperate plea, and the man's shadow danced ominously, plotting against us. I could feel the weight of 1,000 questions crashing against the shores of my mind, pooling in my chest. Leaving? What would that even look like? What if I couldn't outrun the darkness that clung to me, the memories that felt like chains? "Just leave with her, please," Dante encouraged softly, clutching my hand tighter. "We can be safe. You've always said we need to run from the bad things." His unwavering faith felt like a lifeline amidst the rising tides of terror. But what if running led us into yet another storm? Would I ever be able to shield him completely? A shuddering breath escaped me as I tore my gaze away from the man still pounding at the door, wanting nothing more than to protect the tender soul beside me. The cafe's patrons were frozen in their own disbelief, their faces pale, desperate for an answer I didn't have. "Look," I said, desperation clawing through my resolve. "If we leave, where will we go? How can I trust you won't lead us straight into harm's way?" Nadia held my stare, her gaze searching mine. "I'm not asking you to trust me entirely. Just trust in the possibility of something better," she replied, a flicker of compassion illuminating her features. "If we don't act now, that man will find a way in. You can't predict what trouble lurks in the shadows, but you can choose to step into the light." For a split second, silence devoured our chaos, suspending time as I considered her invitation. A choice one I had to make now. The impending dread, the looming threat, everything anchored round me. All the pain lived through my life burst forth like an untamed beast. Could I truly let go? Then, from somewhere in the cafe, a hand brushed against my shadow. A woman seated nearby had risen, her kind eyes burning with fierce compassion. "You need to listen to her," she implored gently. "I've been where you are. I found strength I never knew I had when I chose to walk away from the darkness." The sincerity in her voice danced like flickers of hope, igniting a fire in me. Maybe, just maybe, Nadia's words weren't just empty promises. "Dante," I turned to him, searching his young face for guidance through my tumult. "What do you really want?" "Safety," he whispered, his voice steady, "and a chance to be happy." Each word struck like a hammer, forging resolve within me. Perhaps I could allow myself to care less about the past, to forge a new path despite the monster chasing me. "Okay." I exhaled heavily as the thunder cracked in the distance. "Let's do it." "But if this goes wrong, then it goes wrong together," Nadia interjected, her determination flowing like an embrace. "But I promise you, you'll be okay." The man outside seemed to sense that time was slipping through his fingers. His desperation morphed into fury, his face twisted with rage as he pounded harder, the glass rattling precariously. "Now," I urged, my heart pounding in rhythm with the chaos. "We have to move." But as we hurried toward the cafe's rear exit, toward the promise of a new beginning, I felt a cold, sweeping dread encapsulating my every step. An unresolved question loomed before me. How could I ever protect the tiny flicker of hope at my side when shadows continued to invade my life? Just as we reached the door, poised to cross into the uncertainty of the night, a loud crash resonated behind us. The man had broken through the front door, his eyes wild, locking onto us with a predatory ferocity. "Stop!" he bellowed, his voice slashing through the air like a blade. Without looking back, I shoved the door open, pulling Dante through the threshold into the unknown night that awaited. Yet the weight of the darkness closed in around me, a shroud that was far from lifting. And as we fled, A single haunting thought echoed violently in my mind. What if the hardest choice we could ever make was the one to run from a past that might have given us a chance to heal? The rain lashed against my face as we burst into the night, each droplet cold and biting, amplifying the urgency that propelled us forward. Dante's small body pressed against me as I guided him deeper into the storm, his breath quickening with every frantic step. I could hear the faint echo of the man's rage behind us, the glass doors shattering fragments reflecting the shambles of my own heart. Where are we going? Dante's question trembled in the dark, anchoring me back to the reality that awaited on the other side of this desperate escape. A place where we can breathe, I assured him, though I wasn't sure if that place existed anymore. Somewhere safe was but an echo, drifting far beyond reach. Nadia fell into pace beside us, eyes scanning the streets as if danger lurked behind every raindrop. "We need to find a vehicle, something to put distance between us," she murmured. Determination sharpening her features, we ducked into an alley, hope dimming as I took stock of our surroundings. The flickering streetlights cast elongated shadows, and the world felt like a collection of surreal images caught between terror and possibility. I kneeled to be eye level with Dante, holding his small shoulders firmly. "You okay?" He nodded, though the tremor in his lips betrayed the bravery he wore like armor. "Just stay close to us." We huddled in the darkness. The distant wail of sirens pierced through the night, a reminder of the chaos we were fleeing. Moments stretched and twisted, every heartbeat echoing louder than the thoughts spiraling in my mind. How much longer could we run? Nadia tapped my shoulder, her presence a balm amidst the unrelenting storm. "I spotted a car over there, tucked away." She nodded toward the dim outline of a rusty sedan parked haphazardly at the mouth of the alley. "We could break in, and then what?" I interrupted, uncertainty creeping into my voice. "What if it doesn't work? What if we get caught?" Or, she offered, a gentle smile breaking through the tension, "we could find a way out. We owe it to ourselves to try. Besides, failing takes courage too." Her words hung in the air, a soft echo of hope amidst an otherwise darkened landscape. I glanced at Dante, his trusting gaze resting on me, and for a brief moment, I could almost believe that we could rise above the wreckage of our lives. "Let's move," I finally said, a flicker of resolve igniting within me. We darted toward the car, every step heavy with the weight of the night, but lighter somehow because of the bond binding us. Just as we reached the vehicle, the pounding of footsteps echoed behind us. Panic surged through me, and I quickly pulled the car door, heart racing as it yielded with a reluctant groan. We clambered inside, the smell of years' worth of stray spices and dust hung heavily in the air. "Pop the ignition," Nadia urged as I settled into the driver's seat and fumbled with the unfamiliar controls. I could hardly focus, fear knitting itself tighter around my chest. The sound of my heartbeat thundered in my ears, matching the frantic tap of rain against the windshield. That I took a shaky breath and turned the key in the ignition. The engine coughed and sputtered but finally roared to life, a guttural sound that filled the essence of a new possibility. I peeled away from the curb. I dared a glance through the back window. The shadow of the man loomed close, his outline slowly fading into the winds that whipped through the wet streets. A deep sigh of relief escaped my lips, but even amid the rush of adrenaline came a wave of guilt that chased my spirit. What if leaving meant abandoning everything and everyone I loved? We navigated the rain-slicked streets, and the weight of the city pressed in on us. My mind grappled with questions that had no answers. How much longer could I keep running? Would we ever truly escape the malevolence that seemed to cling to me like a second skin? "Mom?" Dante's soft voice broke through my reverie as he peered out into the rain, eyes wide and cautious. "Will we be okay?" I tried my best to smile, though my heart tugged painfully in my chest. "Yes, honey. We'll find a way," but doubt lingered, the fear of the unknown, the shadows creeping closer. Suddenly, the headlights caught a figure standing alone by the curb, drenched in the downpour. I squinted, my heart pounding in my ears. As we drove past, time seemed to stretch, a heart-stopping moment where I could make out the face of a young black boy no older than Dante, his expression frozen in a mixture of sorrow and resilience. Something about him struck me achingly familiar, an echo of my own grief reflected back at me. The world blurred into a wild cacophony of emotion, sending a chill through me. "Mom, are we?" Dante started, his voice barely above a whisper, but I had already committed to the choice. I wouldn't ignore the connection tugging at my heartstrings. This boy could hold a different fate for us all. I slammed my foot on the brake, the wheels screeching as I spun the car to a stop. The boy turned, and for a fleeting moment, our gazes locked, his dark eyes reflecting countless untold stories, an understanding that transcended our circumstances. "This isn't over," I whispered, breathlessly caught in the tempest of emotions, fear and fury merging with a vulnerable inkling of hope. We had rushed out into the unknown, and perhaps it was time to reach back somehow. Just as I flung open the door, a shattering reality drew closer. The weight of my past was surging again, threatening to reclaim me as the rain fell harder around us. "Wait," I called out, heart sustained by a desperate need for connection, for anything to shift the healing tide. But the boy hesitated, eyes flicking back toward a different destiny, and I knew in that instant that my heart would never fully mend without risking it all. And just as the truth began to swirl in the tempest, I received an even more shocking revelation. Perhaps the boy didn't just need us. He needed someone to help him carry his own burden, a burden that we still had the chance to lighten together. The moment hung in the air, dense with unspoken words and untold pain. I didn't move as Dante's small hand gripped my arm, a tangible reminder of what was at stake. The rain continued to pummel down around us, drowning out the sounds of a world I felt increasingly disconnected from. The boy, still unsure, glanced back towards the shadows that the storm obscured, his face a tapestry of longing and fear. I could sense the turmoil within him. It mirrored my own, a battle fought silently, hidden beneath the surface. "What's your name?" I called out, my voice trembling against the downpour. "Malik," he replied, his voice almost lost in the raging storm. My heart quickened at the sound, the name echoing in my ears with an inexplicable familiarity. I couldn't help but wonder about the life he led, the moments he had fought through. "Malik," I repeated, feeling the weight of his existence. "Do you need help?" For a breathless second, he hesitated, scanning my eyes for something real, something genuine amidst the chaos. Hope flickered beneath the surface of his uncertainty, a tiny flame against the overwhelming dark. "Where will you take me?" His question hung heavily, a raw plea that cut through my heart. In that instant, I realized I was no longer merely protecting my son. I was being called to protect a boy who, like Dante, craved safety, love, and understanding. Somewhere safe, I assured him, but I knew the truth was murkier than that. Safe was a concept I was struggling to grasp myself. "You don't have to stay alone out here." I stepped forward, light pooling around us from the car's headlights. I saw Malik flinch slightly, fear dancing in his eyes. It sparked an old memory and fear I had felt when running from my past, a past that seemed to have a relentless grip on my heart, one I wasn't sure how to break free of. "Mom." Dante's voice was soft, threaded with worry. "Are you sure?" I looked back at him, and though I wanted to shield him from all the sorrow the world had to offer, I felt the stirring of compassion within me urging me onward. "Sometimes, the strongest way to heal is to reach out, honey. It's okay to share our pain." I met Malik's gaze once more, a wealth of understanding washed over us. "You deserve something better than this." "We all do. People say you shouldn't talk to strangers," he said, his doubt still evident. "They can be dangerous." "I know," I admitted, glancing nervously around the street as shadows danced in the rain. Yet, what made someone dangerous? Was it the circumstance they found themselves in or the depths of their heart? But not everyone is bad. "I want to help you." He stared at us, the weight of his decision heavy in the air, the rain drenching him further. The fear-filled walls he had built around himself began to flicker, little by little, a crack waiting for light to seep through. Just then, sirens echoed closer, cutting through my thoughts like shards of glass. I felt the tension rise in my chest as I remembered the looming threat, the danger chasing me and my family. I jerked my head towards the sound, panic igniting anew. "We need to go." Malik's wide eyes mirrored the urgency of the moment, and without thinking, I rushed back into the car, waving him over. "Please, we have to hurry." In a heartbeat, he was beside us, water streaming down his face as he climbed into the back seat. a strange mix of anxiety and hope playing out in his delicate features. As I slammed the door shut, another realization swept over Metis was not merely an escape for Dante and me. This child could very well hold the key to lifting our own burdens. Together, we might learn to carry our grief while still finding the light. That I threw the car into gear, the tires screeching against the wet pavement as we surged forward, and I caught a glimpse of Malik in the rearview mirror. Despite the rain streaking down his face, I could see something ignite within him, a flicker of belonging, of hope reflected in his uncertain smile. But alongside that hope coiled a deepening dread. The closer we got to freedom, the more I felt the shadows of our past clinging to us. What truths did Malik carry? What would he reveal, and how would it impact our fragile connection? Where are we going? Malik asked, glancing out of the window, curiosity and trepidation written upon his brow. At a place where you can feel safe, I said, my heart racing as I recounted the few possible options racing through my mind. Would they truly be safe? Will you trust us? He nodded, but just then, from the corner of my eye, I saw something move fast through the rain, a flicker of red in the distance, unmistakably belonging to a pair of tail lights. I couldn't shake the feeling of being pursued, yet the phantom cloud of danger looming larger than before. The intensity of the night pressed heavily upon my soul, as realization hit whoever was chasing me was within earshot, perhaps even close enough to taste the fear. And as we drove deeper into the downpour, the bitter truth settled over me like a shroud. I was not just running from a physical threat, I was fleeing from the unbearable weight of unresolved grief and the choices that had led me here. Would I be able to save both my son and Malik from what lay ahead? Or would this storm consume us, leaving behind only shards of laughter and the echoes of what could have been? I glanced at Dante, then back at Malik in the rearview mirror, two boys I needed to protect from the darkness pooling at the edges of our lives. And suddenly, just like that, I felt the sharp, stinging realization creep in. There was no way out, only a choice to make, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for the heavy burden of truth that awaited us in the aftermath. The rain mercilessly lashed against the windshield, obscuring my view and blending the world outside into a blur of colors and desperation. As I pressed my foot down harder on the accelerator, it felt as if the universe itself were attempting to push us back, urging us to stay within the grasp of our pain. Mom. Dante's voice was barely audible above the clamor of the storm, but his concern permeated through, slicing through the chaos that surrounded us. Do you really think we can help him? I glanced back at Malik through the mirror, where he sat hugging his knees, his small frame shivering not just from the cold rain, but from the unspoken fears that permeated the vehicle. The vulnerability in his eyes caught at my heartstrings. We have to believe we can, honey, I replied, forcing my voice to be steadier than it felt. Sometimes, hope is all we have left. As we drove on, the wipers fought a fruitless battle against the rain, and I felt a growing unease. The road ahead twisted and turned, illuminated only by the glare of our headlights. Each bend seemed to hold potential threats, shadows lurking just out of sight. Every time I looked at the rearview mirror, my heart sank further. Would they find us? Would I lead both boys into more danger simply because I yearned to shield them from harm? I kept telling myself I was doing the right thing, that we would find a refuge where we could breathe freely, yet doubt gnawed at the edges of my resolve. Are you really safe? Malik's voice broke the silence, filled with a desperate sincerity that brought more tears to my eyes. I was haunted by the weight of the truth. Do people like you ever really care? My mind raced. How could I explain that the chaos in my heart mirrored his? I want to care, I murmured, my voice cracking. I promise I do. Dante shifted beside me, reaching for the armrest, his fingers trembling as he processed Malik's plight. The fear of abandonment mirrored in both boys' eyes, intertwined by fate. Maybe we can all heal together, he offered softly. Maybe, I said, guilt and fear mixing together in a toxic brew. My heart ached for the innocence of their belief. If only it were that simple. But it takes more than just wanting it. It takes trust. Malik looked out at the rain, and I could see the walls around his heart harden again. I trembled at the thought of shattering those defenses. The hesitation seeped into the air, heavy and tangible. Just then, as if the universe was testing my resolve, a loud horn blared behind us. I jerked forward, my heart racing as I glanced in the mirror. A car, large and black, like a predator upon the hunt, had turned onto the road directly behind us, thrumming with an energy that screamed of imminent danger. My chest constricted as dread crawled its way up my throat. "Mom," Dante warned, his knuckles whitening as he gripped the seat. "They're close. Really close. I see it," I hissed, panic flooding my veins. Swerving the wheel, I turned onto a less traveled side road, uncertain yet desperate to lose the looming shadow that had now flashed its headlights, illuminating the night sky like a beacon of terror. "Who are they?" Malik whispered, terror coating his fragile voice as he tensed against the seat. "I don't know," I admitted, barely keeping my voice steady as I peered through the side window, searching for any signs of fidelity. "But we have to keep moving." I accelerated, desperate to elongate the distance between our lives and the darkness behind us, when suddenly the flickering lights faded, swallowing my hope whole. They stopped. I breathed out in a rush of relief, letting the tension in my shoulders loosen momentarily, but it was short-lived. As I glanced over my shoulder, I noticed another car speeding toward us from the opposite direction, lights gleaming, blinding me for the briefest moment. My heart sunk. The universe was closing in like a tightening fist, and I felt the walls begin to crumble around our fragile escape. "Mom," Dante cried, panic rising in his voice. "They're everywhere. Calm down, baby. I need you to trust me." The words forced themselves out. Inside, I was screaming, fighting against the insatiable waves of despair that threatened to pull me under. But just when I thought we were truly alone, I saw a figure appear in the glow of the headlights, standing resolute in the vanishing rain. A small woman, drenched and weary, with a flashlight in her hand, pointing it toward our slowing car. "Stop." Her voice rang out clear above the storm, holding a power I had not anticipated. I skidded to a halt, confusion spinning in my mind. "What? Please help us," she shouted, her frame shivering but full of determination. "There are many people coming. Please, you have to let me in." A mix of instincts collided within me, an innocent plea fused with the fear of vulnerability. I was on the edge of revelation and danger wrapped into one moment that felt ungraspable. Would this stranger save us or seal our fate? And as she approached, I realized there was no way to turn back. My choices resonated in the air, heavy with fate and uncertainty, threatening to unravel us further still. In that split second, I felt the gravity of the moment and the burden of truth closing in. Fragile lives entwined within the storm, risking everything on an encounter that could either bind us or tear us violently apart. Would I let her in, knowing nothing of her past, or keep the door firmly shut against all that might lie ahead? A choice was presenting itself, and perhaps this bleak night held secrets that would alter everything for better or for worse. My mind raced as I weighed the choice before me, the weight of the moment pressing down, steeped in fear and a flicker of hope. What if she's one of them? I thought, glancing back at Malik, whose wide eyes shone with uncertainty. I'd fought so hard to protect my son, and now this fragile new bond, only for yet another potential threat to loom before us. But the intensity of her gaze, glimmering through rivulets of rain that dripped from her hair, revealed a desperation that mirrored my own. This wasn't just about me letting her in. It was about our collective survival. Dante and Malik right alongside me, 3 lives intertwined in the heart of the storm. She might be our only chance. A voice inside me whispered softly. I took a deep breath, the air thick with tension. "Okay," I said, my mind screaming uncertainty, but my heart compelling me forward. "Just stay close." With trembling hands, I hit the lock button, and as the soft click echoed in my ears, it felt like a lifeline was cast in the tempest of my emotions. The woman dashed over, rain splattering onto the asphalt as she reached for the door, her flashlight cutting through the gloom. "Thank you," she exclaimed, her relief palpable as I swung the door wide. "You must be quick. They're coming." As she climbed into the passenger seat, her energy filled the car, a counterbalance to the fear that had gripped us all. "Valerie, please, just drive. It's not safe anymore." I threw the car back into gear, tires hydroplaning slightly as I maneuvered back onto the road, adrenaline surging anew. The rain lashed against the windshield, hiding the world beyond, but I felt a strange sense of unity with this stranger. We were now in this together, bound by our hunt for safety. "Do you know who's chasing us?" I asked, urgency threading through my voice. Her expression turned grave. I don't know all the details, but I know there's a network of men searching for something worth fighting for, even if it means harming others. The weight of her words struck me, and I felt a chill spider up my spine. But we can take a different path. We just have to get to the old community center a few miles down. Community center? I echoed, grasping for clarity. How could that possibly be safe? It's a haven for those like us lost souls trying to escape unpredictable dangers. The trust radiating from her somehow seeped into my veins, igniting that glimmer of hope I had long since buried beneath layers of grief and exhaustion. Just then, Dante's small voice broke through the thick tension. Why can't they just leave us alone? Valerie turned slightly in her seat, her eyes meeting his for a moment. Because sometimes, hurting people don't know how to heal, sweet boy, she said softly, her tone soothing as warm honey. But we can create our own way to heal. Encouraged by her reassurance, I focused on the road ahead, pushing the darkness further away, propelling us toward an uncertain future. Malik fidgeted in the back seat, anxiety bubbling up in the small space left for whispers. What if we can't find the center? He questioned, vulnerability slipping through his tough facade. We will, I resolved, determination nodding inside my gut. We have to have faith. It was the only thing I could cling to, a thread that tethered us against the chaotic world engulfing us. As the minutes crawled on, I felt the watchful press of danger lurking just behind us, a silent threat trailing in the rain-soaked night. In the rearview mirror, I spotted a shadow that seemed to linger. Was it possible they were following us? I swallowed hard, the fear twisting tight in my throat. We really need to hurry, I urged, a sudden urgency punctuating my words. I flicked my gaze back to Valerie. What's the quickest route? She pointed forward, her voice steady. Take the next left, then follow the winding road. It will lead straight to the center. With every turn of the wheel, my heart raced, pounding against the walls of my chest, fighting to find a way through fear. Each passing moment felt heavier, the weight of the past pressing down as I fought against the darkness hanging. Closely at our heels, Dante's small hand found mine in the center console, squeezing tightly, as if seeking reassurance amidst the storm. We'll be okay, right, Mom? He asked, vulnerability tinged in his voice that I looked over, forcing a warm smile despite the palpable tension coursing through us. Of course, sweetheart. We're together, and together we can weather anything. Malik shifted uncomfortably and finally piped up. What if it doesn't work? What if they're watching the center? I felt a pang of uncertainty in my gut as doubt lingered in the corners, gnawing at the hope I'd grasped onto so desperately. We have to try, I said resolutely, the weight of my promise igniting something deep within me. There was no way forward without faith in the unknown. Trust me, Valerie added, her conviction rousing the flickering resolve in my heart. Please. Just as I turned left into a dimly lit street, darkness closed in, the shadows growing deeper and more tangible. I could hear the faint roar of an engine from somewhere behind us, its sound cutting through the rain like a knife, fueling the dim flame of panic taking root in my chest. Alienate the fear, I whispered to myself as I squeezed Dante's hand tighter, reassuring him with my resolve even as fear intertwined with hope. We can make it. Don't look back. Focus on moving forward, Valerie urged, her voice breaking through my feverish thoughts, pulling me back to the present. This is your moment. Own it. With her words propelling me, I pressed the gas down harder, the engine roaring as I gripped the steering wheel with purpose, navigating increasingly chaotic streets blurred by relentless rain. My heart raced to match the pace of our escape. Shadows danced in my periphery, and the oppressive feeling of frostbite clawed at me. But as I drove on, resilience began to overcome the paralyzing fear. This chase had transformed into a desperate endeavor for life, hope, and the chance for a better path. We're almost there, I promised, the words spilling forth in a rush of recovery. I could almost see the faint flickering light of potential safety ahead. As we drove down the final stretch, the center's outline came into view, silhouetted against the stormy sky. But before I could feel relief, everything fell away as headlights flooded our car, white lights piercing through the darkness like a harbinger of doom. Drive faster, Valerie shouted, the panic rising again, and I obeyed instinctively, heart racing as I pushed the limits of the vehicle. "Mom, please," Dante cried, fear etched on his small frame. "Hold on," I yelled as I turned sharply. My decision made. This was our chance to escape. Tires screeched against the pavement as we maneuvered into the center's poorly lit driveway, and I could see shadows darting in the rain-soaked chaos outside. I felt the world narrowing into focus as sirens howled in pursuit. But in that moment, I understood. This was only the beginning. The journey that took our lives into the depths of darkness was transforming. Hope surged within me, igniting a resilience that surged through every fiber of my being. As we rolled to a stop, I turned to the boys, their faces pale but ready for anything. "Stay with me, no matter what. We will find a way through together." As I caught sight of the flickering lights of the community center, the path towards safety extending before us, I knew we had already begun to defy the odds. The darkness might chase us, but it wouldn't claim us. And in the tangled web of emotion that ensnared me, I realized it was not just about zest for survival, but a promise I had made not only to them, but to myself. To always find a way back to the light, no matter the storm that loomed ahead. We were alive, our hope pulsing as fiercely as the rain falling down. And in that moment, whispering against the storm, I declared, "Together, we rise."